Daniel Rivers grew up in East Hollow, a neighborhood where laughter died young and dreams were replaced by survival. He lived in a cramped apartment above a laundromat with his mother, who worked double shifts at a diner. At night, she often came home too exhausted to speak, collapsing into a chair as the hum of the washing machines below filled the silence. By the age of 10, Daniel already knew life wasn't fair. His brother Marcus had been arrested twice. His best friend Elijah was gone, and school felt like a holding cell where teachers barely noticed he existed. One day, while escaping a street fight, Daniel ducked into the abandoned west wing of his school. The hallway smelled of dust and neglect. Doors cracked open like broken teeth. In one forgotten room, he found an old upright piano. Its surface was scratched, the keys yellowed with age. On instinct, he pressed a single key. The slightly out-of-tune note echoed through the empty room, and for the first time in a long while, something stirred inside him. From that day on, Daniel returned to the piano whenever he could. He had no teacher and no sheet music. Instead, he taught himself to play by ear, copying melodies from an old MP3 player he'd found in a dumpster. His fingertips hardened, and the music became the only bright part of his life. That dusty music room became his sanctuary. One afternoon, Mr. Lanning, the school janitor and a former music teacher, heard the sound of a haunting melody drifting through the hallway. He stepped into the room and saw Daniel playing an original piece, raw and emotional. "You wrote that yourself?" he asked. Daniel shrugged. Moved, Lanning gave him old music theory books and offered to teach him during lunch breaks. Slowly, Daniel's wild, instinctive playing began to take shape, but reality hit hard. At 16, Daniel's mother fell ill. Medical bills piled up and the fridge was often empty. With no choice, Daniel dropped out of school to work her old job at the diner, scrubbing dishes until his back ached and his knuckles bled. Music faded into the background, a whisper behind the noise of survival. Months later, Lanning handed him a flyer for a youth talent showcase. The winner would earn a scholarship to a private conservatory. Daniel doubted himself, but Lanning arranged for him to practice on an old piano in a church basement. For 6 weeks, he worked by day and practiced by night, pouring all his pain and hope into a single piece. The night of the showcase, Daniel stood among polished students in tuxedos wearing a borrowed shirt 2 sizes too big. When his name was called, he walked to the grand piano, sat down, and closed his eyes. He played, not with perfection, but with truth. His fingers told the story of East Hollow, of loss, struggle, and fragile hope. When the final note rang out, the room fell silent, and then came the applause. Daniel didn't win first prize, but Clarice Pennington, the director of a prestigious conservatory, approached him backstage. "It wasn't clean," she said, "but it was honest. Come study with us. Full scholarship." At the conservatory, Daniel felt like an intruder among prodigies who had been playing since childhood. But he worked harder than anyone. He practiced until his fingers bled, studied until he fell asleep over his books, and slowly began to excel. He started composing music that fused classical structure with the rhythms of the streets he came from. By 21, he won the National Composers' Youth Prize. At 23, his first symphony, Echoes of the Hollow, premiered to a standing ovation, a tribute to the neighborhood that shaped him. Critics called it a haunting, brave fusion of grief and hope. Yet Daniel didn't chase fame. He returned to East Hollow and rebuilt the abandoned school music room, filling it with instruments and inviting kids to learn for free. He visited juvenile centers, sharing his story and telling the kids, "You don't need permission to make art, you just need the courage to start." Some laughed, but others stayed. A few began to play. Years later, his proudest moment came on national television, playing a duet with a 10-year-old student from East Hollow. Together, they performed the same melody he once played alone in that dusty room. The world watched, but Daniel looked only at her, because she was the proof. Proof that fire can forge, that silence can sing, that broken places can still grow something beautiful. In the end, Daniel Rivers didn't become a hero because of fame. He became a hero because he climbed out of the darkness and pulled others up with him. And somewhere in East Hollow, if you listen closely, you can still hear a piano whispering a melody no one taught, but everyone remembers. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more. Check out one of these videos next. You're going to love them. See you in the next one.